Hi, I'm Geri McCritty from Pava Gallery here at LCTV Channel 66, downtown Lancaster. You are watching Shining a Light. Today I'm going to be shining a light on African American Winery. And I have the pleasure of talking to Mr. Mark Rhodes. Mark, how are you today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here on my show.
Excited to be here.
All right. I want to ask you to please, for those who don't know you, please introduce yourself, a little bit background about where you from, where you grew up. Just a little brief history.
Okay. Well, my name is Mark Rhodes. I live in York, PA, York City. I'm married to Val Wines. Me and her just celebrated 40 years.
Oh, congratulations.
And I'm a winemaker. Matter of fact, I'm one of the first black winemakers in Pennsylvania. There's only 3 of us currently existing in PA that make wine. In the United States, there's over 12,000 wineries. There's only less than 100 of them are owned by African Americans. So it's a very rare thing that we do, but it's something we take a great deal of pride in. I first got started making wine as a hobby. I used to take that young lady with me. We used to go to wine tastings and wine festivals, and we were loving it.
Okay.
And I kept saying, I could do this. I said, I bet I could make wine. I just had the feeling I could do it.
Yeah.
So I went to, never forget, we were on our way to our daughter's house. She lives in Delaware. And there's a wine shop along that way.
Okay.
And I just stopped and went in and just said, I need everything there is to make wine. And the guy looked at me like, really? I said, yeah. He said, oh, okay. So we bought our first home kit. First wine we made was Pinot Grigio.
So I must cut you off there for a little. What's a home kit look like? I mean,
a home kit is like it's going to be a bucket. It's going to be a 6-gallon bucket.
Okay.
It's going to be a little container of concentrate wine. It's going to have the ingredients in there to make the wine. It'll have some other little tools that you may need, a hydrometer, different things like that. You start getting all that stuff in there. And you get a little sheet of instructions. And you go home and you start.
Okay. So is it like dried fruit in there? Like
no,
grapes?
It's a concentrate. It'll be a concentrate pack. And the one we bought was one that only made 1 gallon. Because I didn't know what I was doing. So I'll just get this one to start.
Okay.
And got back home and I couldn't wait to make it. So we made it. Now wine, mind you, it's not an overnight process. Wine takes a while. So we made the kit. I mean, I put in every day from work. I come home from work, I kept checking it, looking at it. There's nothing you can do, but you keep looking at it like, okay. Then
you have to sit in like a little dark corner?
No, we just sat it in the kitchen. I just sat it right there. I didn't know what else to do with it. I was like, leave it here. And after a while, there's steps in there. Like the first is fermentation step, and the second one's your second fermentation. And you start to develop those statics. You start understanding the steps of what you have to go through to make the product.
Okay.
And when we got finished, looked at each other. We were like, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Who knows?" So we tasted it, and it was good.
Okay.
And I got hooked. And I said, "Let's make another." So,
so you had to go get another.
Oh, kit? I had to go get another one. So I ran out to the store. Now I'm buying the bigger ones. They come like 6 gallons. So I'm buying the big ones. Yeah, give me that one.
Yeah.
And we started having fun with it, you know. But what we didn't think about, every bucket is 25 to 30 bottles. And I'm steady making bucket after bucket. Before you know it, we had a house full of wine. I said, oh, hold up, time out. Because we had people over the house.
I was going to ask you about that.
We was giving away
parties going
We
on.
was giving away wine. Didn't matter. We were
Yeah.
going. So after a while, Al came up the stairs one day and looked at me. She said, you got to do something with this. She said, I can't get down to the washing machine. I said, oh, how much we got? I looked. There was white boxes everywhere.
Oh,
the whole way. I said, yeah, you're right. So we called the state, because I'm a human relations commissioner at that time.
I was going to ask you, what did you do before you got into the wine?
Well, I was a human relations commissioner, and I owned a company called Key Learning Consultants.
Okay.
And I used to do diversity and conflict resolution workshops.
Okay.
I worked all over the state. I worked with the state human relations commission. I was a commissioner with the city's human relations commission, and I had my own company. So I used to go all over places, setting up workshops, teaching people about race and racial issues, how to get along better, how to deal with cultural issues, how to get long in the workplace,
So
you
you
know.
had a little kind of clientele base kind of
Yeah,
already
I was
building
going. I
up,
was
something
well.
like
They
that?
didn't know nothing about the wine
Okay.
because that was my refuge. You know, when I got done talking, race wears you out.
Yeah,
You get done
yeah.
talking about race and race relations
Yeah,
and listening
yeah.
to attitudes and thoughts,
Yeah,
and at the same time you're holding back what you really want to say.
yeah. Right.
It just wears you down.
Right.
So wine
Right.
was my refuge.
Right.
So I would go home and make another bucket of wine. Make something else. So
Yeah.
it just was my relaxing, my opportunity, and I kept reading and learning and studying and getting more into the wine. And then, key learning was I did that for 23 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was working at Harley Davidson. I retired from Harley Davidson. So I
Okay.
worked at Harley Davidson third shift. I get off work,
Oh, you
go
were
from
busy.
jeans
You
to
were
a suit.
busy.
Yep, from jeans to a suit, out the door,
Wow.
and do that for how many hours the contracts were. And then I'd go home and just make some
Make
wine.
How
Maybe
much?
drink
How
a
much?
glass.
I was gonna ask you. How much of that did you drink?
The more you work it, the less you drink.
Really?
Or I kid you not, the more you make it, because I got so into the flavors and the nuances and the how do you do certain things and how to develop your your technique. You ever go in a state store? How many wines do you see? You see 5 or 10?
Overwhelming.
Right? You know why?
Overwhelming, yeah.
Every winemaker makes wine his way. So there may be something. There's like my Diablo. It's our #1 selling red. My Diablo is going to be different than a lot of the other Diablos you're going to run into.
Why is that?
Because it's a blend. My blend is Cabernet Franc and Concord. But we just call it Diablos. So there's a lot of other people, they'll make a Diablo, but it might be Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot.
So where does your inspiration? Where do you draw the inspiration from to
Reading.
make these wines? Like,
Reading, studying, reading.
do you just visually think on?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I wonder how ginger or whatever
Yeah. Oh,
it
yeah.
tastes. Okay.
Yeah. Or me and her go to the grocery store, we'd be down the juice aisle, and I'm like, ooh. And then sometimes we'll look at each other and say, hey,
Yeah.
I want cranberry. What do you think? But see, what people don't realize, what they don't know is the juice that's in the store, you can't make it. You can, but you can't make into wine easy because it has potassium sorbate and other things in there to keep it clean. So
Okay.
you add yeast to that, it just kills the yeast. So what you can do though is steal the idea, then go get some juice, good juice that you're gonna need. Like we get our fruit juices out of 3 places: a place in Michigan, Walker's in New York, and there's a place in New Jersey called
Okay.
Gino Pinto.
Okay.
They ship us in our fresh juice. That's where we get all these different flavors.
Okay.
The grape juice, now you get those from different sources. The grape juice, we've been lucky. We ran into 4 or 5 wineries in York, Pennsylvania that have gone out of business. So what they do is it takes 3 years for your vine to start cultivating juice. Well, you don't want to chop that down when you go out of business. So what they do is they call guys like me. They call other wineries and they say, hey, we got this, we got that, and we just go buy the juice from them.
Okay.
Okay?
Wow.
It's 90
Wow.
pounds of juice per 5 gallon.
Okay.
So when you go, some wineries will charge you by the pound. They'll say, I
Okay.
want X amount of pound for these grapes. And you have to calculate in your mind how much you're going to need.
Okay.
Well, I want 90 gallon. Okay. You have to figure it out. And then once you figure that out, take your containers down. So once they start pressing and destemming, fill up the tanks, fill up your cup. They'll call you back and say, okay, your juice is ready. You go down and pick it up.
Wow.
Bring it back, and you start doing the work. We start putting it into our tank. We have 18 vats at the shop. So we pour them into the vat. We let them settle out. That means
It's
all
like
the little
what's
junk.
a vat? Is it like a
It's a big steel,
pot?
round, beautiful pot.
Okay.
And you pour it in. We have plastic and steel. Pour them in. That's my first fermentation, but we don't ferment right off the bat. We'll pour it in, let it settle, because it's always going to have stems and all that little stuff from the fields on it.
Okay.
And then once that cleans off, we'll rack it. Our racking is transferring that juice into another container, and then we'll clean that out and put it in there. Now we're getting ready for yeast. Depending on the wine is depending on the yeast. I take measurements. We'll take measurements of how sweet that juice is. We'll do break and starting gravity points. Okay, this is 1.0 or 1.80 or 23 break. Yeah. Whatever you want to use.
Yeah.
Either one, it comes out the same.
Okay.
And then once you do that, you figured it out. You say, okay, I got a 23 brick. It's a red wine. Let's use QA 23. That's going to give me more mouthfeel, smoother wine in the end. So then I'll take that and we pitch the yeast. Now what we do is we do what we call yeast starter. We'll take that little bit of this juice, a little sugar, mix that in, dump that yeast in, and it's 1 gram of yeast per gallon. Mix it in, get it going. Once that yeast starts to hydrate itself and get up, then we call pitching the yeast. We'll just dumping the yeast in the wine.
Okay.
Dump it in. Then we also figure out our yeast nutrient. If we have yeast nutrient, we want that yeast to be healthy. We want it to ferment to make the wine. So we get yeast nutrient in, same deal, stir it, dissolve it, hydrate it, get it into the tank, and let that wine start to do its thing. Now you gotta, one thing wine has taught me that I'm really thankful for is patience. Wine does what it wants to do when it wants to do it. You can just have all the plans you want.
Wow.
It ain't gonna matter. When it's ready, it'll let you know it's ready. If it's not, it's not. And all you can do is just look at it.
How does it let you know? I mean,
Well, you're going to do your measurements. You're going to
Okay.
take your measurements all the time. So your wine, the yeast will start to eat the sugar in the wine that you have in there. The sugar, that's the natural sugar and all that. Since we're using yeast, there's two. There's malolactic fermentation and there's regular fermentation. Our yeast fermentation is a thing that speeds it up.
Okay.
And you can regulate it pretty much how much alcohol you want to have. So the higher the brick and the more the certain yeast you have, you'll get about a percentage of alcohol a day. Yeast eats the sugar, creates the alcohol.
And
Offshot is CO2.
Okay.
That's the bubbles.
Okay.
And what you want it to have a good CO2 because CO2 is heavier than air. It'll do like a protective coating on top of your wine.
Oh. Okay.
So it keeps your wine from spoiling, anything like that,
Okay.
any damage. So you let that, get it going good. You keep measuring. You'll measure every day. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Every 2 or 3 days, you might want to stir the pot. You know, get the yeast active, get a little oxygenated, get it going. Then put your lid back on. Go sit down somewhere for the next 2 or 3 days, or do whatever else you're going to do. By the 7th, 8th day, you should start to see a significant drop. Now you start your measurements. That you're going to look. You can use a hydrometer to measure, or we pour the wine into this tube. We have like a glass, looks like a thermometer, and it'll have readings on it, tell you where it is alcohol-wise. Excuse me. And you want to, that's one of the things you can do, or I'm more of a new school.
Okay.
I use a refractor and I use the digital.
Okay.
Let me just drop a few drops in. It's so much easier, so much quicker. Bing. Oh, okay, that's where
So
I'm at.
what's your highest alcohol content?
For dry wines like this, we go 13-14%. Because that's the yeast that I like to use for this. I want the wine to be wine, not alcohol. If I'm making alcohol, I can just go ahead and use a turbo yeast and put sugar in the water. That's no problem. Distill it later. I can make 100 proof, 130 proof.
Right.
But I'm making wine. So I want it to be good. So I want the wine to stop around 13-14%. So that it has a good taste to it. You can eat it. You can drink it while you're eating. That's our goal.
Okay.
So our sweet wines, which are a faster process because fruit is sugary, fruit
Yeah.
don't take long,
Yeah.
we usually stop at 9-10%. Now when I say stop, we add potassium metabisulfite to kill germ. We also add sorbate, potassium sorbate. I use all vegan friendly chemicals.
You don't use no dyes and
No.
all that kind of.
No.
Okay.
That's the other part.
Yeah.
Our mango pineapple, if you see it, it's a little brown. Everybody goes,
Okay.
okay, that ain't pineapple. I said, yeah, because that's what happens to citrus when you actually make it wine. Now, if we added the dyes in like everybody else, I could make it yellow.
Okay.
But we don't. We use
Okay.
the natural fruit and whatever juice that we got, that's what we're working
Okay.
with. So it's a good
And
way to make it.
as far as logistics and just the business side of it, as an African American man, like you said, it's just 3 of you. What are some of your challenges here in the
A
PA?
lot of challenges. In, getting accepted as a winemaker because when there's so few of you, they don't take you serious at first. They think you're a kit maker, and you are. You start off with kits, but they
Right.
don't realize when you graduate into grapes, now you're into their field, and they're going to be looking at you like, okay, this guy's, who is this guy? So
Yeah.
you start to get a little more recognition, a little sweeter, a little
Yeah.
more. Taking you a little more serious.
Yeah.
We've got wines that are pretty good. We were just in the Poconos, and we were at 2 wineries in the Poconos, and they heard of us. So we were like, okay, well, the word's getting out. And they were like, yeah, they're talking about you. I said, okay. I said, so we're doing something right.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. A challenge getting into known markets, getting into taverns, getting into places like that, extremely hard because we're small guys. So although our production is pretty good, we're still considered small. So we have to watch our pricing. What we pay for juice right now is high because we're limited in our vat production room. And once we can increase our production room, of course, it's like everything else, price goes down as we've been buying more. And when that happens, we can start to make a better offer to taverns and that, and say, okay, here's what we can give you for this cost.
And I hear you have stores opening. I know you have in York, and then is there any here in Lancaster? I know you have one opening in Columbia. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we fell in love with Columbia. And they always had a thing called Fourth Friday, and they even invite us over. And every time we came over to Fourth Friday, we had a ball. We had a really good time. Met a lot of great people, and we kept saying, we kind of like it over here. And we didn't really pay any mind. So I looked up, and the one guy said, "Look, why don't you think about moving over here because you got a product everybody likes." Yeah. And we considered it, and the one offer we got, the building was just a little too much. We was like, "Oh, it's a nice building, but we can't afford that." And then out of the blue, we got another offer. And that offer we liked. It was pretty nice. And that offer we could do. So it's in Locust Street, 208 Locust Street.
208 Locust Street.
In Columbia.
In Columbia.
We're looking at opening. Right now we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We just lost help. We're looking for help again. Okay. So we're going to be doing probably Friday, Saturdays till we rebuild it. We are catty corner from the new hotel that's being built. The Hilton. We're catty corner. I mean, straight across the street, which I love. We have a nice courtyard and deck. We'll be having entertainment there in that facility. We're going to have singers. We're looking for local talent. I don't need a DJ. I can play my own records. I need people, though, to be able to show local talent. I want to see you sing. I want to hear you play your guitar. I want you to enjoy yourself. Yeah. And I want our people to come be able to sit out on the deck and hear you, or sit in the courtyard and relax. So that's our goal. We're going to really get that going.
What about in Lancaster? Any thoughts about?
I haven't really thought much about Lancaster until we tackle Columbia. Then we'll look at Lancaster. Once we get Lancaster and Columbia figured out, we can look at what's the next option for us. But right now we're happy. We just gotta tackle this hiring thing, getting people together. And all that stuff.
Okay. And what about out of the state of PA? Do you have any of your wines in various places other than the state of PA?
No, because with us, people don't know, it takes a lot of wine. You got to get a salesman. You've got to have a lot of wine on hand to get into the state stores. And PA is so Californiaized, all these other foreign. You go in, that's what's the dominant, they have us a little wall rack, PA, and the rest. And you know what's sad? We're sixth in the country in wine production.
Wow.
Sixth in the country. California, of course, has the lion's share. That's their main product. But we have over 400 wineries in PA. We are just behind New York.
Wow.
Just behind New York. And they have Finger Lakes and all that. And we make just as much wine as they do.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think we have good soil for it. It's really great. Thing I learned that I'm really going through, wine laws, liquor laws are state to state, which is hard. So, and for some reason, Pennsylvania is very relaxed and open. We don't mind. We let them come in. They go through the paperwork, but nonetheless, man, I tried to get a permit to do a few things down in Maryland. They don't even have it. They're like, no, we don't even do that. You got, I said, hey, this trip, I couldn't even get one down there. And Virginia's very tight. They're very tight, too. They don't like you to come down there either. Delaware either. But PA, oh, yeah, come on in. I mean, I'm not saying I want us to be restrictive. I don't think that's the answer. But let's loosen up. At least give us opportunity. At least let us buy a permit and come there and do our thing and fair for ourselves. If we do good, we do. If we don't, but give us opportunity. Don't make it real hard to get.
What sort of advice would you give another person, another couple who wants to get into the wine business?
Start where you are with what you got, and don't let nobody tell you different. And learn as much as you can about it. Just don't get deterred. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't go out and buy a whole ton of equipment because you're not going to need it. Just get you a bucket and start and ask for help. Don't get so proud or
Yeah.
that you think that you got it, that
Right.
you're not asking for help.
Right.
Ask for help. I love
Ask
talking
for
to
help.
the other wineries guys. I love talking to them. They come down, they'll sit and talk to me for hours, and I love it. We talk about how to do certain things and what happens when you run into certain things.
Yeah.
And and it's a good kinship. It's a if you think about it, we're a small group of people. There ain't a whole lot of people making wine.
There you have it, man.
There's not. So it's a small group of us. So reach out. I've never turned anyone down that reached out to us. When I've had a lot of people ask me and say, well, if I come, you teach me how to make it? Absolutely. Somebody taught me. Absolutely. When you want to come.
There you have it, guys. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Mark and Val Wines. Mark, thank you, man.
No problem.
And I'm going to enjoy these bottles of wines. Make sure you check them out. Geri McCritty from Shining a Light at LCTV and from Pava Gallery. Thank you for watching.